So everybody, again, welcome to the show. By the way, Micah, really quick question, and this is a very provocative and controversial question. I'll ask the audience this as well. As you know, this is a interactive show. Raise your hand, ask your questions. We've got a really exciting show today. Super excited to talk to our guest. But before we get there, I have to ask you this question: what is the expiration date for saying Happy New Year?
We're
5 days,
done. Yeah, we're
7
past
days,
it.
10 days?
For 7 days. It's expired already. So,
It's expired. It's
yeah,
stale, stinky milk.
I think
Like,
so. I
dump it
think
out.
so. I don't
Okay,
even say it, and I don't do resolutions either.
okay. Well, you're not really, like, that friendly of a guy. You're kinda,
No, no, not at all.
thorny. Yeah. So, I mean, I get that. But let's see what our guest has to say too, and I'm not gonna wish him a happy New Year then because you said I can't. So,
We
I
got a
I
real
would have
whale of a guest today.
otherwise, but
This is a big one.
okay. Alright. Well, here we go. Without further ado, drum roll, please. Another sound effect that we need. Dang it. Okay. Simon, we gotta talk.
We need more
Um,
royalty-free sound effects.
yes. Without further ado, let me welcome our good friend, our very own CIO at Automation Anywhere, Mr. Sumit Johar. Sumit, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting, Gabe. It's always good to be on this talking on these topics with you guys. And this time, you guys have picked up a very interesting topic that's close to my heart. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you're the inspiration. We've talked about this throughout the course of last year when we started these LinkedIn audio events, really designed to be around the generative AI conversation that was starting, that was happening, or that is happening, and talking about how we put generative AI to work. And so we've had so many different perspectives over the past year. Um, Offering expertise, offering insights, and you joined us for one of those as well, or was maybe even 2, and they were fantastic, and so circling back to kick off the new year to talk about, um, you know, this really interesting concept because as the year progressed, in some cases we heard, and you can validate this, enterprises are really interested in generative AI. Maybe I don't wanna say scared of it, but are being very cautious about deploying or maybe don't know where to start, all these things, and today, what we're gonna talk about is how you started, how we started, how you led that charge, and talk about the components, and considerations, there, and maybe share some of the insights and some of the things you learned along the way, so super excited about that.
Absolutely, Gabe. And this has been quite a journey. Generative AI, unlike other technologies that we have explored in the past, is, to say the least, a little different. And but the reality is that the results that we have seen with it are amazing, and I am still as optimistic as I was when we started this journey about the potential of generative AI.
I wanna ask you something as just to set the table here as we get started. Um, well, I think last time we talked we talked a little bit about the evolution of the role of the CIO. And again, it's probably been a year, I think. But how has that continued to change, or has it changed since this, sort of wave of developments around in and around generative AI, the different models, the different all the different caveats and things pertaining to it. How has your role changed? But basically, so what do you do all day?
Wow, isn't that a $1 million question? What do CIOs do? Well, let me tell you this, Gabe. We don't wake up thinking about what new tool or technology am I going to be buying today. I know some of our listeners, or maybe you think like that, but not, that's not what CIOs do. We actually look at our role as an enabler for the entire organization to help them meet their organization goals. And we all live in a digital era, and technology can play a big role in helping you drive towards those goals. That's what we think about all the time. You were talking about the role of the CIO. The reason the role of the CIO is becoming or continues to stay as relevant, and in fact more relevant these days, um, is exactly for that reason. Technology continues to play a big role in helping organizations stay competitive. And that's what we're trying to do. So tool technology are playing such a huge role these days in everything that we do at work. Um, for instance, you could be, let's say your goal of your organization is, hey, I want to improve the sales velocity. Or you might be looking at improving customer experience. You want more customers, you want to acquire more customers, you want customers to like to work with you. Or you might be trying to, let's say, hey, my function wants to close the books faster. What can we do? Any problem that you're trying to solve, end of the day, technology has a role to play in that, and that's what we think about all the time. So
That's that's interesting. I think it leads me to this idea, and I think we had talked a little bit about before, but it's sort of it's a bigger picture, right? You mentioned closing the books, you mentioned customer experience. While technology is sort of the one of the tactical pieces, but does that mean when you're in conversations with the C-suite, with our C-suite, you're thinking about driving growth for the company beyond just sort of saving, X amount of dollars in invoice processing or something?
it really depends how the times are. If you ask this question to me today, I would say most of my conversations, the CIOs that I meet with, they're all talking about how can I help my company improve their margins. I mean, that's the macroeconomic environment we are living in.
Mm.
uh, there is a lot of tool consolidation going on. How do we optimize ourselves? How do we do more with less? But if you ask me this question, I would say 3 years ago I would have said everybody was talking about building the scale, helping drive the growth. I mean, growth is still important, but margins have become even more important right now. So that continues to be the theme, at least for last, I would say, a year or so, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. In the context of that particular goal, we are also talking about what tools, technologies, can we use, what business processes can I improve, to meet those goals of improving the margins. But that's really what we are talking about these days.
So, Sumit, if I were to sum all of that up, it sounds like you're really looking at how can I help the company drive forward safely, securely, with focus, right? So that we can enable as many people as possible to do the things that they need to do. When I think about that, I think about a CIO's responsibility of like, hey, there are 50 different requests for different software platforms that people want this year. And I have to somehow sort through to figure out like which ones have overlap and where do we already have some of these capabilities. But beyond that, which was already complex, it seems like within the last 2 years, a wrench has really been thrown into a CIO's realm of responsibility with the emergence of generative AI. So, talk to me a little bit about how an already complicated task has become more complicated now with the emergence of generative AI, either used directly or baked into other capabilities.
Absolutely, Micah. And how could I thank you for reminding me about the safety and security? How could I not mention that? Many CIOs like myself, we are also responsible for enterprise security in our roles. And when generative AI, initially became a buzzword, I would say the first reaction that every CIO had was, this is probably, another new thing, another cool technology that may have some potential or may not. Let's just wait and watch, right? And over time, I heard so much skepticism, not only from outside, from other CIOs, but also from my own team, especially from the data privacy, security, and compliance functions. And the concern was that, hey, nobody understands. Does this technology, can I share my data with these generative AI models without worrying about them getting shared publicly? I mean, do I have the confidence to do that? And then the other challenge that I heard a lot about is, hey, this there is this whole thing about hallucinations. Apparently, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And we, being the technical folks, we are all used to building solutions that are reliable and explainable. When I provide an input to my technology, some output comes, and I should be able to explain it. I received this output because of XYZ reason. That's how we troubleshoot problems. That's how we solve problems. Now, what was so unusual about generative AI is that explainability is hard because you might get two answers depending on when you ask the same question. We never dealt with that kind of situation before, so this was extremely unusual for us to be in that kind of situation. And then there were so many other things that, hey, suddenly there is this flooding of all these models. Nobody knows which models to pick for solving what kind of problems. So anyways, I mean, that's probably just the gist of it. All the confusion about what the technology can really do. Does it really have the potential as everybody's saying, and how do I use it safely and securely?
And I think it's interesting too, because you mentioned, traditionally, you're able to explain the input and output flow and why results happen. And with generative AI, you're sort of leveraging, their decision making in the LLM
Yeah.
effectively, and you can get an
Yeah.
output. But I'm curious, what are the core tenets from the traditional model? What still applies, or does it all still apply? And how did you, as you begin to embrace the idea of putting generative AI to work for us, here at Automation Anywhere, what were some of the core tenets of that approach?
Well, I would say, Gabe, we had to make a few adjustments to our approach on solving problems. And when I was talking about the accuracy of the responses or hallucination of the problems, and also data privacy, um, I think the biggest adjustment that we had to make was, hey, this is a technology that can do wonders for you, but you have to make sure that you um, apply in a way where there's some checks and balances that you never had to worry about in the past. Talk about, let's say, you know the data accuracy or hallucination, for instance. What we ended up doing was, when we built our first, let's say, internal chatbot and equivalent of chat gpt, we call it Jarvis, something that we deployed internally to all the employees. We said we're going to take one step further than chat gpt, and when an employee asks a question, the response comes, we take another extra step where we're going to go and verify that response. We're going to collect an evidence in the form of a document, and we're going to show that document that, hey, I gave you this response, and here is the document that I pulled the information from. So that way the employee doesn't have to think about, can I trust this response or not. He can actually click on that document and see, get some more confidence that, yes, this is actually a reliable set of information. I did not have to worry about these kind of things in the past.
Mhm.
Let's talk about data privacy, right? So um, it was very clear this is so new. We were also skeptical. We did not want to trust these models and the service providers of these models with our data. So we said, why don't we initially invest in areas where the the data is not very sensitive, um, knowledge bases that are sitting inside, or knowledge bases that companies have provided to their customers publicly. That is such a good source of information, source of data that can feed into these models without having any risks of data privacy, because that data is already public, right? So when we launched our let's say first automation use case, powered by generative AI for customer support, we only use that data, and the results were amazing. We were able to automate 35% of our tickets end to end without having to worry about the privacy of the data. We jumped on it, made some adjustments, and we said some of the problems like data privacy will solve over time, but let's not worry about that right now. Um, so incrementally showing success, not worrying about solving all the challenges that are new with this technology, and just go in phases. Basically, that's the kind of approach we took. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's super smart, because to your point, it's like you can't wait for everything to be perfect, right? And I think it's brilliant that, using publicly accessible data from the company. So if it's, building the knowledge base on technical documentation or other, other documents that are widely and freely available from the company, what a great place to start, because you're not exposing anything, right? And you're learning how to, create value. I'm sure, as you mentioned, I know that there was instant value from doing that. but you're able to do it in a safe way while you sort of work out the details on how you can leverage other data that's maybe a little more sensitive.
And I would also add, Gabe, this also depends on the culture and the DNA of the company. I don't know if every organization has, let's say, the appetite or the drive to kind of take that approach. Luckily, our organization, we always worked like that. I mean, that's how this company was built. It's in the DNA of the company. When our founders basically created this company, this category of intelligent automation didn't even exist. They were the first to basically lead with that, right? So there is that culture not only within my team but also in the organization that allows us to drive innovation while taking a few risks, as long as those risks are manageable, as long as those risks are not totally crazy. We're thinking about workarounds, even if we don't have perfect solutions all the time. So the culture of innovation, I think, also made a huge difference in helping us deploy these solutions internally.
Yeah, there's a ton that I really like there. First off, if anyone's taking notes at home and you're a CIO or you're talking to a CIO, I think one of the biggest things that Sumit just hit on is if you're going to start with some of these new emerging technologies, do it in a way where you have a low risk, right? Low visibility, lower risk, so that you're not necessarily going to, end up in the newspaper if this doesn't go right. So I think one of the great examples he mentioned was building these automations that are available for our own internal employees. If you have questions related to HR processes or onboarding or things like that, that's a great way for us to have a low risk automation that can help us. It has generative AI baked into it. It gave our automation team the opportunity to learn and get familiar with some of these capabilities. So that's a huge win. And because of that, that's enabled that team to start to take on larger opportunities related to generative AI as they've continued to grow in their knowledge. And that's the exact same thing we talk about with Pathfinder, right? If you're just getting started with your automation program, if you're just getting started with a new platform or a new technology, you don't have to take on the home run, biggest risk, biggest visibility opportunity from day one. Think about how you can kind of dip your toe into this, learn. If you make mistakes, you're learning along the way, and then you can start to put yourself in a position to take on those more complex automations in the future. Sumit, from your own description here, it sounds like if I'm a CIO, there's really kind of two camps. There's one where I see this generative AI stuff, I wait to see how others do it, and then I jump in. The other camp is I can start to get in right away. I'm going to recognize, what is the opportunity here? How do I mitigate these risks? You talked some about the culture at Automation Anywhere, and I think that this is something that we all agree with. The culture of innovation, the culture of being able to take advantage of opportunities, try new things. Talk to me about some about that and how that has really led to the not only foundation of automation program here and generative AI, but also the continued expansion of that and the message for other CIOs who may be listening.
Absolutely, Micah. I would say, I've been part of this company for almost 3 years now, and one thing that has struck me every time while making critical decisions is the culture that allows us to leverage innovation as a competitive advantage. And I have tried to inherit that culture within my team. I am a strong believer that quality of our internal and external operations can be our competitive advantage as well, as long as we're constantly innovating. So when the opportunity presented in the form of Gen AI, um, it was not a difficult call for us to make. As a company, we have always believed in the potential that the concept of intelligent automation brings. But the challenge in the past was AI was hard to deploy. AI was hard to, the whole process of training AI models, machine learning processes. You really needed huge infrastructure, the skill set, the capacity, and even within my organization, we did not have that much, either the budget or the capacity to deploy AI to that level. One thing that struck me when generative AI was announced last year was that it could literally allow CIOs to democratize AI at the organization level. And I did not want to lose that opportunity. And we as a company are very used to trying new things without waiting for others to basically successfully deploy and having any best practices. We really like to take our, do our own test experiments, deploy things, and create our own best practices, and then share these learnings not only internally but also with our customers. That's how we always run this company. So I'm really glad that those experiments have actually worked out really well. At this point of time, I got at least 21 areas, 21 business processes internally where we are deployed generative AI led automation. And one other thing that I want to add is it's not enough just to deploy generative AI until and unless you have a really powerful automation platform basically that complements generative AI. That's how intelligent automation can be deployed. And I'm fortunate that the technology that we sell for a living, that is very AI friendly platform. So for me, combining the intelligence of AI with the power of this automation platform, where the automation platform becomes the hands and legs and generative AI kind of becomes the brain, combining them together was really easy thanks to the platform that we have. But that's where we are right now.
And I can attest to, and I'm super excited to be leading the program within the marketing function too, and working on integrating intelligent automation powered by Gen AI. There's so many cool things that are happening. You mentioned the 21 different processes and programs that you're working with, and there's many more to come because I've got a bunch right now that we're working on. But you guys both mentioned this thing that I love, and I just had the good fortune to celebrate my 5th year here, and the thing that I constantly tell people that I love is just this idea, the spirit of innovation that you mentioned. We've been able to innovate in so many ways, whether it's the technology, whether it's how we get things done and behind the scenes, whether it was when Micah joined and we came up with the AA Illustrates, and Micah's redefining how we do learning, the bucket, all these wonderful things just permeates the entire company. And when it comes to this is such a huge deal, along with putting Gen AI to work and leading from the front. I think it's amazing. But I want to get practical really quick on some of the decision making. You've talked a little bit about it. Like, talk to me about some of the sort of key decisions and considerations that maybe are even recommendations for other CIOs who haven't quite dove in yet. What like do you have a short list of like the 3 things you gotta know?
Sure. Well, one of the question, Gabe, that I always get is, I understand there is potential in this new technology, but I don't know where to even start from.
Hmm.
And what I always tell everybody is that, you know, there is so much data that is sitting out there within your organization that's not being used. I mean, ask anybody, how often do they really go to the intranet portal when they need to look for some information? We're all so used to finding information on Google with the press of one button. If we don't have that, uh, intranet kind of approaches have become a little outdated now. So I would say the easiest thing to start with is, um, find that opportunity where you got some knowledge bases, you got some data that is unused. What's magical about generative AI is that it's really good with unstructured data. uh, a problem that we always had. We are all used to building solutions and automations with structured data, but here technology comes in, and its strength is to leverage unstructured data like documents, PDFs, POs, PowerPoints. All of that can be put to use, depending on what problem you're trying to solve. But I would say start with initial use cases, either ability to ask questions about your internal corporate operations policies. It could be IT support, it could be HR, it could be finance, legal, whatever, basically, right? That could be the easiest one to start from. Second, I would strongly suggest trying to automate day-to-day support. And this support could be your internal IT support for employees. It could be, support that you provide to your customers. It could be the questions that your teams get from your suppliers, from your partners. All of that can be automated easily as long as you got some decent data. You have to make sure your data that you're leveraging for automating some of these functions is good, because end of the day, generative AI in itself doesn't do anything. It simply uses the data that you have, and it provides basically interactive and human-like answers using the data. So strongly recommend making sure the quality of the data is good before you use it. As far as some other concerns about privacy is concerned, I would say, well, one, try to start with data that is not sensitive. Two, I'm not a very big fan of you know letting my data leave the organization. Um, as long as I'm working with vendors that I support, we are a cloud first company. I have no problem putting my data on the cloud. But some of these organizations, like OpenAI, that have come up, they're really good at providing the models that you need, but I don't know whether I can trust them with my data by calling their APIs and all. They're still new. So the approach that we took is we just deployed these models on the AI infrastructure that we built internally, so that the data really never leaves our organization. And that gives me, my legal team, my own IT organization, my security organization, the confidence that yes, we cannot deploy more because we know the data is not leaving the organization. So that takes care of some of those concerns. I already talked about hallucinations. Always make sure that it's not just one model. I mean, one model can respond to the question that's being asked, but we use a combination of models. And the way we use it is, if one model is giving you the answer, you could have another model with some automation that's actually verifying that answer. Or sometimes, if you are still concerned about the accuracy of the responses, put a human in the loop.
Mhm.
That's another place where our technology shines, the automation platform that we sell, because it makes it, using the automation copilot that we are using internally, it allows our business users to review the response of AI models before before an action is taken, right? So I strongly recommend, case by case, you decide, uh, based on your own testing, are you comfortable letting AI kind of respond to questions, or take actions? My recommendation is to start with, always put a human in the loop, and as you get more confident, um, you can take the human out if that's what is required. These are some of the things that come to my mind, that we have been very, very careful about. And now we are at a stage where we're finally starting to move towards using sensitive data. And when you do that, you got to worry about a few other things that I did not mention before. One could be making sure that when you are sharing your data in the form of a query with the model, you should mask that, anonymize that, and you got to do it in a way that it's not impacting the quality of the model performance. And there are some tools out there that we are investigating right now. That's one thing you have to worry about. The other thing I would also mention is, if you're exposing some of these services that are built, using these AI models in the form of chatbots, be very, very careful about some new kind of attacks that I'm hearing about, like prompt engineering attacks. There are attacks basically that can, at a very least, consume your model capacity that you have bought, and that can be easily stolen by these third parties if you're not careful. If you're not careful, some of these chatbots that you build on top of models can also be exploited for things that they are not meant to, right? So all kind of things are possible. So just a few things to keep in mind. Some of these solutions are not very mature, so um, do your diligence as you're deciding which use cases to start from.
Yeah, I think that's great. And especially, we don't want to just necessarily expose our model and the consumption model to the wide world web for free use, because then you could have an infinite build that you may be looking at. Sumit, one of the things I think you mentioned that is really important takeaway here is one of the easiest ways to get started with generative AI and some of these capabilities is some of the stuff that's already baked into the product. With the .30 release, Automation Anywhere released document automation with generative AI. And that enables users to basically query a document to get some data out. And that means that not only can I take on now structured documents and semi-structured documents using document automation, but I also have the ability to leverage generative AI baked into the product to be able to essentially ask questions and make queries of unstructured documents. So if I have a legal contract or some other document that doesn't follow a standardized format, and I may get 3 or 4 different formats based on who's sending it to me, this is a great way to start to dip your toes into the pool of generative AI and start to understand how some of these capabilities can be leveraged to enhance your automation processes. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Sumit, was you've talked a lot about what your team has done to create these really innovative solutions internally. I think the other side of that is, as a CIO, how do you think about bringing the employees of an organization along on that journey? I know that, and not brown nosing, but you've done a great job at sending out these regular updates on, like, hey, this is what our team is up to. This is some of our newest successes. This is something that's on the way. Here's a short video about how to use it, right? So you've done a great job of what we would call like promotion and evangelism of the capabilities of your automation program. Talk some about the importance of employees and users along for that.
One of the common challenge that I've seen with the initiatives that CIO takes sometimes is that they are spending all this time with their teams, working really hard, building solutions, but then if the entire organization doesn't quite know about them or understand the benefits that we are getting, the ROI that you're getting, then you kind of lose the momentum. End of the day, we are doing it for our business communities. And if they don't understand the full potential of what the technology can do for them, these initiatives cannot be as successful as they can be. So we are very, very conscious about, uh, communicating our journey, how we measure ourselves, sharing those metrics about how these technologies are making a difference in everybody's life, and also celebrating the success in general. uh, you know People like to see success stories, and it motivates everybody. If one function has deployed a solution, let's say in our HR organization, I can totally see a other function coming next to me and say, I want to deploy something similar. My problem may not be exactly same, but it's very similar. Can you help me as well? So as a company, we are big believer in celebrating our successes and learning from each other. And that's what we try to do here in IT organization, CIO organization. The newsletter that you're talking about is all about what's going on in our world. And, uh, basically the idea is to inspire everybody to do even more with the technology and the opportunities that we have.
It's super cool because even as small as we are, we don't see everything that's going on or everything you guys are up to. I have a great relationship with you and the team, and I get to hear about some cool stuff, and even help tell those stories. But it's so important. And Micah, when we were at Imagine, we talked to just so many people, many of whom had gone through the Pathfinder program, and that evangelism piece really stuck out to them and really changed for the better how their program operates. Um, I recommend to all of you guys out there, if you're not familiar with the program, maybe Simon, you can put a link up to the Pathfinder program in the community, but do check that out. And also to our audience, I'm curious, raise your hand. I'm curious what your organization is doing and how they're looking at deploying generative AI. And are you looking at generative AI with the power of automation? As Sumit said, I think, it's one thing, and I've said this before, it's cool that I can go to I'm simplifying a little bit, but I can go to ChatGPT and I can like maybe expedite, a social post or something or some piece of content. It's a little bit faster. I get to 70, 80% of what I like. I edit it a little bit, that human in the loop piece, but it's all manual, right? It's just another app in my that I'm adding to my workflow. What I love is, and again, we're fortunate because we work at the premier automation company in the industry, shameless plug. But the idea of having that, like the automation copilot interface where I can press a button, it runs the Gen AI piece, it brings it back to me for approval and editing. Once I approve that, then I can go push it to whatever distribution channel I want. That could be an upload to SharePoint, that could be the YouTube channel, a blog, whatever it might be. So that's a game changer. It's cool and interesting and nice to be able to do the first part, but like I said, if I'm just having to cut and paste from yet another sort of application, I haven't changed that much of my process, right, for the better. Um,
One other thing I'll mention, Sumit has, like I said, done promotion and engagement really well. I think going back to some of our conversations at Imagine, one of the hallmarks that we saw of pretty much every automation program that is really firing on all cylinders and is really successful, they have uh, investment and buy-in from leadership, like Sumit. Maybe it doesn't always go all the way to the CIO level where they're sending out some of those newsletters, but that's a really important characteristic of an automation program that is healthy and is doing well. We have leadership buy-in, we have leadership investment. They recognize the value of it. They're helping us to promote these different things. It's one thing just to build something. It's kind of like, if I build it, will they come? And a leader who is helping to encourage and spread the word about, hey, this is available, this is how you use it, this is how it can provide value for you and your team. I think that's incredibly important and often overlooked when it comes to running and leading an automation program.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And by the way, while we're discussing that piece and we're talking about really how we embrace the art of the possible, to in order to do that, you need to have, you know, programmatic approach. You need to have all these considerations we talked about. But Sumit, talk to me a little bit about the structure of your organization, and just to Micah's point, maybe not every decision bubbles all the way up to you, right? I don't want to, and I don't think you want to make this sound like you're calling all the shots necessarily on a down to the minutia when it comes to this. Talk to me a little about the team, the structure of your team, and the concept of sort of trusting the team to do these things. Like, what are the considerations there, and what are you empowering the team, your team, to be able to deploy and optimize this program.
So, um, couple of thoughts on that, Gabe. First of all, we have, I mean, I'm sure you all have met with Mark. Mark is our, director of Center of Excellence for Automation. And my only ask from Mark is to basically, uh, you know, meet the goals that we have set for ourselves in terms of, every year, this is the level of automation we're going to bring to the organization. These are the metrics. This is how we're going to, track our progress. And how we do that, which exact automations, we prioritize. Um, I don't always sit in that conversation. I know Mark is in touch with most of the internal functions, meets with them on a bi-weekly basis. And one of the things that he has done really well is also build a community of citizen developers who are also helping him contribute to this automation development work. Because when we started, remember, this was only, I would say, 4 or 5 developers that we had in the team. And there is no way that I could just use those 4 or 5 developers to make the kind of impact that we have. I mean, at this point of time, if just to share some numbers, on an yearly basis, Mark's team is producing or saving 175,000 hours back to employees, and close to $3 million in cost avoidance or savings that has came out of the automation program. All of that was possible because we have invested in a program that allows our business users to work with us in many different roles. Sometimes business users have some capacity, some skill set, and they want to be part of this automation journey with them. So we're big believer in this whole citizen development concept. when we meet with them, it's not these 5 6 people, it's actually 50 members that come to that bi-weekly meeting that Mark has. I'm highlighting that point because it is so very important for CIOs to think about how to scale their automation program. um, the other data point that I want to share with you is, we just ran these numbers. Actually, I was very curious, you know, about the ROI that we get from this automation program, and how has that ROI changed with generative AI. And one key metrics that I saw is that in the past with basic automation, our ROI was, let's say, somewhere around 3x on the cost. And what we are seeing with generative AI is, if you combine Gen AI with automation, we are looking at anywhere from 9x to 12x, you know, uh, the ROI. That's 3 to 4 times than just basic automation, and that's amazing. And these are the kind of metrics, these are the kind of measurements we share with the rest of the organization as well, and that also drives more adoption.
It's amazing to see that kind of, magnitude, and increase in ROI, which is, to your point, when we started, we were talking about the state of enterprise today and the focus on efficiency and growth, or sorry, the efficiency and optimization, not necessarily growth. Um, we just announced, the press release came out yesterday, I believe, um, about automation copilot for automators and how that's gonna help to, uh, speed up this, as you mentioned, like, if you're limited with the number of developers, this dramatically reduces the time for development. Micah, I'm way above my pay grade here. Talk to me a little bit about automation copilot for automators. And Simon, we've got to get the sound effect for shameless plug. I need like shameless plug.
Yeah, I do need a cool intro for that. Yeah, the Copilot for Automators is a really cool capability that's coming out with .31. If you have a sandbox environment, you likely already have this, or you're starting to see it roll out in your different region. Um, but basically, as an automator, it gives me the ability to describe to a generative AI model what I want to create, and it will start to add all of those actions accordingly. So it can really be a great assistant in helping to build out my automations in a little bit more timely fashion. I think this is also really helpful for someone who's new to Automation Anywhere, or someone who maybe, let's say, like a citizen developer, not necessarily super familiar with all of the capabilities or all of the actions. I can just kind of describe generally what I want to do, and it will start to build some of that out for me. That will continue to mature as we do subsequent releases. But another really cool capability that's coming with it is the suggest next best action. That's a mouthful. But basically, as I'm starting to add different actions to my Automation Anywhere taskbot, it will start to add, hey, what's the most common action that's used after that one to that next area for me? And so it kind of shows up like a grayed out thing, and then I can accept it if I want to. So for an example, if I started doing a loop in an Excel document, it might say move cell or something like that, or get cell as the next action that it would suggest, because that's the most commonly used action that comes right after it. So both of those capabilities will continue to mature, but will also be really helpful for automators right now as they start to build out automations and look to do so more quickly.
It's awesome. It's super exciting. Hey guys, we have a audience member that's raised their hand, would like to ask a question. If I can ask the team, let's bring in Richard and see what he's got to say, what's on his mind. Richard, you are here. It looks like you're on mute, so unmute your microphone and ask away.
Hey there.
Hi, Richard.
I'm new to Automation Anywhere, sort of. I use it one of the places that I worked, and I fell in love with it immediately. I thought it was the future. Gave me goosebumps, literally. How amazed I was.
Not a paid
Uh,
endorsement, by the way.
no, not a paid endorsement. So I decided to take an RPA course online at Udemy, And the support, it's a community edition because I'm a private individual, and the support has been not that great. And I'm fighting with it to connect to my computer just to do some as a starting point, just to open up an application. So I'm kind of looking for help there. So if you have my LinkedIn contact, if somebody can reach out to me and give me literally step by step how to get this thing going, I'd appreciate it. The other thing is that I still find that companies are afraid of automation anywhere. It's a catch-22. We don't have time to automate. We're too busy to automate so we can have more time. It's the most bizarre thing I've come across.
There's definitely a chicken and the egg thing there for sure.
It's incredible because there's so many things that this thing can do. You know, I'm far from, you know, completely involved in it, but I can tell, and from what I've seen and from what I've read, there's so many things that this RPA can do, and companies don't have the time to make time.
Well, we appreciate your enthusiasm, and we're glad that you got those goosebumps. Fortunately for you, we have the head of community and learning here. Then maybe Micah can point you in the right direction.
Yeah. So Richard, for your issues with connecting to the control room, I would say the first place to look is our Pathfinder community. If you go to pathfinder.automationanywhere.com, you can find community posts where people are also using Community Edition and sharing their successes. If you are having specific issues, I would first recommend posting there. We also have, and I can send you this as a follow-up, several videos on how to set up your bot runner agent and how to get that installed. So I'll send that as a follow-up to you. I think someone got your name down here, so I'll make sure that we send that to you. But yeah, once you get that bot agent set up and installed, then you should be good to go. So we'll make sure that you get that, and yeah, you'll be on your way.
That's awesome. We've got another audience member, the one and only Stephen America. How are you, sir? We're going to bring you in. Team, can we bring Stephen in? By the way, speaking of how-tos and pro tips, connect with Stephen and follow his feed. He's got a lot of good stuff.
Stephen, long-time listener, first-time caller. But you might be on mute.
They should give us the ability to take people off mute, and then we get like, you know, some crazy background noise or something. Is like stuck in traffic or something. Looks like Stephen might be having an issue with the microphone. I will say, I believe it's in the comment section. Check out Sumit's latest blog that really dives into sort of some of the things we've talked about here and even more. And then we'll have him back and maybe with some other CIOs as well to just sort of kick it around and see what folks are talking about. But Sumit, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting, Gabe. Always fun to be with you guys. And thank you to all the listeners who have been patiently listening to all our conversations about not only AI, but also when is the right time to say Happy New Year and when is not.
We're here to add value, Sumit. That's what we do. Micah, you want to take us out?
Happy January. That's all I've got.
Happy January, everybody. We'll see you soon. I think our next one, don't hold me to this, I think our next one is actually with the aforementioned Mark Goodair, where we're going to dive into the concept of a new year, new me, and we're going to talk about the use cases and the automations that are being deployed internally. Mark runs our COE, and he's been a host here before. You've seen him on our videos. Great dude. So we're looking forward to that. So stay tuned for that and look for those notifications coming your way. Wait, do we have Stephen? Stephen, are you there? No, come on.
No, Stephen sent a question in. We can use it for next time.
Okay, we'll save it for next time. And we're gonna send Stephen a mic too. We're gonna start a GoFundMe to get him a microphone. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a fabulous rest of your day and a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.